This episode is sponsored by Audible. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, and they have over 100,000 titles available for download. Visit audibletrial.com/The Skald Circle to begin your trial and download your free audiobook today. It's time to relax, grab a drink, pull up a chair by the hearth, and have a seat in the Skald Circle to listen to the tale of The Language of Animals from Italian Folklore, as told by Mynogan. Before we begin our story, we wanted to remind you that we release new tales for free every week. Our shorter tales release on Wednesdays, and our longer chapter stories release on every other Saturday. Find out where you can hear them on our website at thescaldcircle.com. And be certain to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. That way, you'll never miss out on one of our enchanting tales from around the world. In addition to our reminder, we have some exciting news for the month of July. You've likely noticed that our format sounds a bit different. Not only that, but you may have heard, in addition to our story releases on Wednesdays, we will also now be releasing longer, chapter-length stories on every other Saturday. As if that isn't exciting enough, starting on July 9th, we will begin hosting Fireside Stories with the Skald Circle at 7 p.m. Central Time, every other Thursday. Our Fireside Stories will be a live stream of Casimir and I regaling you with tales that you may have never heard before, along with some of our witty banter. So if you want to experience what a live show from the Skald Circle is like, that may be of interest to you. You can find out more details under the events section on our website. Now then, without further ado, this is The Language of Animals. A father once had a son who spent 10 years in school. At the end of that time, the teacher wrote the father to take away his son because he could not teach him anything more. The father took that boy home and gave a grand banquet in his honor, to which he invited the most noble gentlemen of the country. After many speeches by those gentlemen, one of the guests said to the host's son, "Just tell us some fine thing that you have learned." "I have learned the language of dogs, of frogs, and of birds." There was universal laughter on hearing this, and all went away ridiculing the pride of the father and the foolishness of the son. The former was so ashamed at his son's answer, and so angry at him that he gave him up to 2 servants, with orders to take him into a wood and kill him and to bring back his heart. The 2 servants did not dare to obey this command, and instead of the lad, they killed a dog and carried its heart to their master. The youth fled from the country and came to a castle a long way off, where lived the treasurer of the prince, who had immense treasuries. There he had asked and obtained a lodging. But barely had he entered the house, when a multitude of dogs collected about the castle. The treasurer asked the young man why so many dogs had come, and as the latter understood their language, he understood that it meant that 100 assassins would attack the castle that very evening, and that the treasurer should take his precautions. The castellan made 200 soldiers place themselves in ambush about the castle, and at night they arrested the assassins. The treasurer was so grateful to the youth that he wished to give him his daughter, but he replied that he could not remain now, but that he would return within a year and 3 days. After he left that castle, he arrived at a city where the king's daughter was very ill, because the frogs, which were in a fountain near the palace, gave her no rest with their croaking. The lad perceived that the frogs croaked because the princess had thrown a cross into the fountain. And as soon as it was removed, the girl recovered. The king too wished the lad to marry her, but again he said that he would return within a year and 3 days. After leaving the king, he set out for Rome, and on the way there he met 3 young men who became his companions. One day it was very warm, and all 3 laid down to sleep under an oak. Immediately, a great flock of birds flew into the oak and awakened the pilgrims by their loud singing. One of them asked, "Why are these birds singing so joyfully?" And the youth answered, "They are rejoicing with the new pope, who is to be one of us." And suddenly a dove alighted on his head, and in truth, shortly after he was made pope. Then he sent for his father, the treasurer, and the king. All presented themselves trembling, for they knew that they had committed some sin. But the Pope made them all relate their deeds, and then turned to his father and said, "I am the son who you sent out to be killed, because I said I understood the language of birds, of dogs, and of frogs. You have treated me thus." And on the other hand, a treasurer and a king have been very grateful for this knowledge of mine. The father, repenting his fault, wept bitterly, and his son pardoned him and kept him with him while he lived. And that is the tale of the language of animals from Italian folklore. Thank you for listening to our story. If you enjoyed it, we recommend taking a look at our Patreon page as noted in the description below. You can earn great rewards while also supporting us to keep these stories alive for future generations to come. Also remember to subscribe to us on your podcast application and leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed the story. A special thank you to Kat for their support this month. Without your contribution, we wouldn't be able to continue these stories, and we truly appreciate it. Visit theskaldscircle.com to stay up to date with all of our current events, news, and much more. Not only that, but you can also visit our story archive of every tale we have told. It's sorted by origin and region for the convenience of your listening pleasure. Thank you for listening to our story. Don't forget, this episode is sponsored by Audible, the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks. While this story is over, you can still visit audibletrial.com/theskaldscircle to begin your trial and download your free audiobook today. Let us know what you've listened to recently on Audible via our Facebook page. We're always looking for new recommendations.